The Gina and Maddie Podcast.
Gosh, today we are joined by the incredibly talented Darren Hayes, best known as the voice of iconic songs from Savage Garden that shaped a generation, but his artistry extends far beyond music. Also an insightful storyteller, and his new book, Unlovable, well, it dives deep into some very personal themes with honesty and vulnerability, and what a treat it is to say welcome to the show this morning to Darren Hayes. Morning, Darren.
Thanks for having me.
I just want to read out the dedication because I think this sets the tone of what Unlovable is about. This book is a dedication to my mother, Judy, who somehow, in the midst of a lifetime of challenges filled with sadness, violence and abuse, found it within herself to make me feel the most magical little boy who ever lived. To be here now talking about it, Darren, you must feel very, almost lucky to be here.
I feel so lucky, and I dedicated it to my mum because she suffered so much adversity and tragedy in her life. She came from a family that had a natural disposition toward depression. She lost her beloved sister very, very young, and then her mother sadly died by suicide as a result of that. And my mother left school very young. She was 15 when she left school. They came from such a loving family, but she met my father, and he beat her up on their wedding night. And that was the beginning of their marriage. And subsequently had 3 kids in 1970s Australia, where there were no protective laws against domestic violence towards women. And that was my life. I watched my mother try to defend us from him and defend herself from him. And that was a very shameful secret that we endured for the first probably 12 years of my life. Yeah, she's an extraordinary woman.
We would never have known this, Darren, with all the massive success you had, the music you came out with Savage Garden. And I was a massive fan and didn't have a clue that this was going on behind the scenes. Is this why you could dig probably deeper than most as a songwriter?
Yeah, I think so. It was an escape for me. There were so many things that were going on. That was happening at home. Then when I went to school, news alert, I'm a homosexual. I'm a gay lord.
Oh my! Have we just got a scoop? Have we just got a scoop?
Scoop, guys. I don't know if you saw me dressed as a flamingo at Pride, but I was the last person to know. But of course, kids always know. And I was bullied relentlessly. And now I know what it's called. It's called dissociation. But even when I was a child, I would just go inside to this kind of magical world. And that's why I thank my mother for that, because she really encouraged my imagination. And so a lot of the violence that I saw, I didn't really process. I think I was in a state of shock and a state of fear. And to this day, I received treatment for PTSD because of that. And becoming a pop star wasn't just a choice and a dream. It was really the only way that I could survive. I decided that at the age of 15, the only way I could survive in this world was if I became untouchable. So when I was in Savage Garden, I was writing songs with Daniel Jones, like 2 Beds and a Coffee Machine. And people would say to me, gosh, that song is so sad. Who is it about? It was about my mother. It was about my childhood. But at that time, I just felt it was a betrayal to my family if I told anyone. So I would just kind of smile and shrug, but I was pleading for help all the way through my career and in a lot of pain until I got to process it.
We will touch on, of course, Savage Garden and your relationship with Daniel in just a sec, but we, at this time of the morning, we're broadcasting, there's kids in the car on the way to school at the moment who might be really anxious about going to school, about walking through the gates because they might not be having the world's best time at school, and they're hearing like one of the biggest success stories out of Australian music talking about it. Have you got a message for that kid maybe that's in the car with mum and dad at the moment, like really just not wanting to go through that school gate?
Yes, 2 messages. Number 1, the thing that makes you a target is the thing that makes you extraordinary. And I want everyone, whether you're a child or an adult, to remember that.
Yeah.
That's the thing that makes me magical. That's the thing that gave me a career. So never forget that. If you're being bullied, remember it's because there's something about you that's extraordinary. That's number 1. Number 2, tell somebody, tell anybody. You might feel ashamed, and that's how bullying and all sorts of abuse thrives, because a victim of anything like that, you feel embarrassed, but don't feel that's not yours to carry, and it's not your fault. And just tell somebody, because everyone wants to help you, and you are so perfect and so loved exactly the way you are, and you'll be surprised at how many people will tell you that once you admit what's happening to you.
Oh, such beautiful words, Darren. I feel like I've just had a hug over the radio. Are you right to stick around? We'll come back. We just got a few commercial commitments we've got to get to, but you're right to stick around. We'll come back and we'll talk a little bit more about the legacy of Savage Garden.
I'd be offended if you didn't invite me.
Beautiful. More with Darren Hayes when we come back in just a sec. It's Gina and Maddie here with you.
Gina and Maddie.
It's our pleasure this morning to be joined by the one and only Darren Hayes. Brand new book is out at the moment called Unlovable. If you've missed the first part of our chat just before, we'll put this up as a full podcast wherever you get your potties or on the Star Player app. Darren, we talked about life pre-Savage Garden, and in your book Unlovable, you do speak about the whirlwind, I guess, that was Savage Garden, and then obviously the sad ending that you had. What I'd like to know is, every time I hear a Savage Garden song, it was really through my formative years. It takes me to my bedroom. I remember listening to Ugly Phil's Hot 30, and then, it was Truly Madly Deeply was playing, and it was I Want You. And the way that Savage Garden has gone for you, and obviously the sad end to it, what do you feel when you hear a Savage Garden song on the radio?
Grateful, gratitude, joy. The thing that people don't realize is I never stopped singing the songs. First of all, I never left the band.
Yeah.
And I always want people to know that it's a simple message. I never left you. I never stopped singing the songs. Worst PR campaign of the world. Okay. So we were in a band together, and when we reached the summit, my band member, Daniel, decided he didn't want to do it anymore. I was devastated, but I tried to love him. I really wanted to be close to him. I really wanted a brother. I was someone that didn't have a father. I was so craving a male, companion, but that just wasn't who we were. I'm so proud of our music, and it is the biggest privilege of my life to still sing these songs. So that's how I feel about it.
Oh, I love that. Have you noticed that people particularly seem to want nostalgia? And even if you did come up with a new song tomorrow, they're still going to want to hear you sing Truly Madly Deeply. There's no getting away from that. And because it does take us all back to a memory in our life, and you've hit that point, obviously, where the nostalgic music is so important to you. So you can't get away from that, right?
But I don't want to get away from it. Yeah, I think I'm unlike... I think somebody like Elton John feels like I do. I think Kylie feels like I do. I've never been through a phase in my career where I've thought there's a distinction between Savage Garden or me, apart from the crowd sizes. For me, I get it. I would be so annoyed if I went to see Madonna and she didn't sing Holiday.
Darren, we really appreciate your time this morning, mate. Can you please just paint us that picture, that moment you were at that Michael Jackson concert, and that was the moment for you that you realised that you knew what you wanted to do?
1987, Michael Jackson. A lot of people don't realise this now because, I'm old, I'm 52. But in 1987, Michael Jackson was coming back from the biggest album that has ever sold. It still is. Thriller is the biggest selling album of all time. He was returning with his sequel album, and no disrespect because I loved it, but Michael had drastically altered his image. And in Australia, well, we didn't take too kindly to that. At the time, he seemed feminized, he seemed androgynous. Well, that coincided in a period in my life where I was very confused about who I was. But Michael was internally very, very sad, but on stage he became somebody else. He was this ringleader of joy. And for maybe 5 minutes, I was this screaming teenager, and then I stopped and I became a student. And I looked around the Brisbane Entertainment Centre, and I just saw that he was this magician and he was creating joy. And I just thought, I want to do that one day. And 10 years to that day, almost to the day, Savage Garden sold out 2 nights at the Brisbane Entertainment Centre.
Oh, my God.
Amazing.
Oh, I love that story.
I literally, I made a pact with the universe. I knew I shared this same motivation inside me that I just wanted to make people happy.
You're amazing, Darren. I love you. We just met.
I love you too.
We love the book. It's unlovable. Darren Hayes. You get it where you get all your books. What a treat.
Thanks, guys.
Unlovable.
Love you.
Thank you, Darren
Love
Hayes.
you.
Bye.
Boy.
The Gina and Maddie Podcast.
For more great comedy shows like this, head to novapodcast.com.au.